conservative activist Charlie Kirk was remembered by thousands at the memorial service. And it started off as like a regular ass Christian memorial. And then very quickly, I think there was a pivot when Benny Johnson went on stage. And once Benny Johnson went on stage, it turned into a revenge tour. They turned this into a massive political rally to talk about how they're going to enact revenge on the enemies of the administration. The reality of the matter is, I don't think a lot of political normies who even found themselves on the conservative side think that this is appropriate. But let's see how the media is covering it. And then I'll talk about how dangerous it is, in my opinion. The blanket idolatry that you are seeing both from Fox News, which is expected, but also from regular mainstream news as well.
The news, though, the highly emotional and often spiritual memorial service for Charlie Kirk, the influential conservative activist and organizer, where tens of thousands of people packed into Arizona's NFL stadium yesterday for an event that had so many people, thousands more could not fit inside that giant arena. President Trump and members of his administration offered tributes to Kirk as a friend and also tributes as a political ally. And in one of the ceremony's most powerful moments, Kirk's widow said she forgives her husband's assassin. Chris Van Cleve was...
This was like a powerful moment, probably the most powerful moment, but then immediately it just got redirected back on this narcissistic vengeance quest that Donald Trump is on. Like, she went with the, you know, I'm a Christian, and obviously as a Christian, I believe in like redemption. I believe in, you know, forgiving everyone no matter how horrible their sin is. And then immediately Donald Trump came in and was like, that I hate everyone. We got to deal with the left, the political left. Anyone that's ever said I am mean must go to prison. I do not care.
At the stadium,
I'm going to solve autism. Like, perfect opportunity for Trump to be Trump, you know, no matter what.
Was inside for this event, and this morning he is at the Phoenix headquarters of Kirk's political organization, Turning Point USA. Chris, good morning.
Well, good morning. Kirk could be a polarizing political figure, but most of the focus of his memorial was on his deep Christian beliefs, many of the speakers likening the service to a religious revival. In an emotional tribute Sunday, Erica Kirk spoke of the devout Christian values she shared with her late husband Charlie and offered these words to his assassin.
On the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Now, the CEO of Turning Point USA, the conservative organization her husband founded, Kirk pledged to grow the movement and encouraged young people to step into their faith.
The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
Moments later, President Trump, the event's headlining speaker, struck a different tone.
That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent.
The president spoke on a wide range of topics for more than 40 minutes and called Kirk's death
But she wants the death penalty, Lamau, what bullshit? No, actually, she gave an interview to the New York Times the day prior, and they straight up asked her, like, do you want the death penalty? And I'm pretty sure she said no. She dead ass hit the Christian line bar for bar. Like, this quote is quite something. Erica Kirk on whether she wants the death penalty for her husband's killer. She added, I've had so many people ask, do you feel anger towards this man? Like, do you want to seek the death penalty? I'll be honest. I told our lawyer I want the government to decide this. I do not want that man's blood on my ledger, because when I get to heaven and Jesus is like, an eye for an eye, is that how we do it? And that keeps me from being in heaven, from being with Charlie. I will say, you just got to take whatever these guys present that is a little bit different and marginally off the trajectory that this ship is heading in. Okay, I'll take it. Anyone that at this moment says like, hey, we should be focusing on a mission of love or whatever, no matter how hollow, no matter how empty, I'll take it. Maybe some Christians heard that, you know, because like Donald Trump is the fucking Antichrist. Okay, the way that Donald Trump moves straightforwardly is like the Antichrist. Okay, he does not give a single shred of a damn. He doesn't care about anybody else. He just wants vengeance, a political agenda that is objectively unpopular, a political agenda that is objectively unpopular by the right as well, because targeting political dissidents has been a major fear of the right. I'm not talking about like the right in politics. the right in positions of power. I'm talking about like regular ass people who consider themselves to be conservative, who vote for the Republicans. Like, that is a real point of contention for a lot of people, and a lot of Americans, regardless of background, actually do love the First Amendment. Now, during the McCarthyism fears, there was obviously a political objective to destroy any sort of political organizing on the left, socialism, communism, the Red Scare, as you guys know. And there was a lot more appetite for this kind of authoritarian behavior from the government than I suspect there is right now. That's the difference. The difference is, if we're talking about like, will they be able to garner enough? Will they be able to farm enough anger and resentment to get fully on board with this vengeance quest? They objectively throw aside like the First Amendment with no fears of repercussion. And I don't know. I don't think that that's the case, because the enemy from within narratives don't necessarily work as well unless there is a clear-cut enemy externally. So the Red Scare worked when we were doing the Cold War against communism, against communist USSR. And do a lot of people hate China in America? Absolutely. There isn't the same level of unconditional hatred for China and an ideological hatred for China as it existed, I think, against the USSR during the Cold War, during the peak of the Cold War. And therefore, punishing political dissidents in this country in this very moment, while the middle class is being shredded, while people are obviously experiencing a lot of economic hardship, is not going to be a super politically convenient move. Whereas if there was a robust middle class with at least some labor protections and whatnot, and a sense of comfort and security, they would probably be more on board with these kinds of decisions from the government, especially as they are truly fearful of their beautiful way of life being taken away from communist elements from within that are getting foreign funding from the USSR, the ultimate enemy, the enemy that is the ideological core, the ideological heart of communism and socialism. Americans right now are suffering economically, and they don't have any sort of understanding that like the future is going to be bleak if other guys actually change the mindset of Americans in general. Like, if you were to ask Americans right now in this very moment, like, do you want to vote for a guy who's going to give you free healthcare? It would be massively, massively popular. You're like, if an uncle who yaps into the night got podcast equipment, thank you. I think there is a lot of discontent, and there is a lot of fear. There's a lot of uncertainty in the hearts of many Americans. And I'm not so certain that the administration can successfully redirect that anger and animosity back to, left elements within American society. They're trying to do that with Charlie Kirk by memorializing Charlie Kirk as this beacon, as this vessel. But again, while he was known by many, especially older people, right? His opinions and his worldview wasn't necessarily so popular as this administration presents it, because this administration is not as popular as they want to be. As I've said time and time again, only weak administrations behave in this way to punish political dissidents. If you are strong, you would not feel the need to do things like this. So that's where we're at. And I'm not so certain that this like war on Christianity style narratives are going to be super successful in getting enough people on board with the persecution of leftist and liberal voices and leftist and liberal people alike. So yeah, let's continue.
Attack on the entire nation.
The gun was pointed at him, but the bullet was aimed at all of us.
Several members of the president's inner circle and cabinet spoke Sunday as an overflowing crowd packed State Farm Stadium, the largest venue in Arizona, to celebrate Kirk's life.
Now, our whole administration is here, but not just because we love Charlie as a friend, even though we did, but because we know we wouldn't be here without him.
The 31-year-old Kirk's rise to prominence was fueled in part by his debates with students on college campuses across the country. He became a mainstay on the campaign trail and galvanized young people to vote for President Trump.
You know, I watch Charlie Kirk's videos pretty much every day.
Once again, this narrative, as I went through it, piece by piece is also not correct. This narrative is incorrect. This is a false reality that mainstream media is presenting. The evidence actually backs up the opposite of this. The Gen Z vote has already swung back in the opposite direction. The Gen Z approval has swung against Trump pretty aggressively over the course of the past 8 months. But outside of the polls that we have consistently looked at, the new polls that came out specifically around Charlie Kirk show that many people know who Charlie Kirk is, especially on college campuses. 90% have heard of Charlie Kirk, but 70% don't agree with his worldview.
Brittany Hegberg traveled to the memorial from Minnesota.
I thought that he really stood up for what he believed in, and I really admired that a lot, and I think the world needs more of that.
Kirk's positions were not without controversy, but his death sparked widespread outrage and heartbreak, and his allies said Sunday it had immortalized him.
You have no idea the dragon you have.
This, by the way, this speech, verbatim, from what I understand, it sounded really strange, and I covered it at the time in real time. It sounded weird. It sounded kind of like a Nazi speech. From what I understand, like different aspects of the speech were damn near identical to both Japanese fascist speeches and also Goebbels.
You have no idea how determined we will be to save this civilization, to save the West, to save this republic.
The comparison is just, it's no longer a dog whistle. It's more so a fucking bullhorn.